I've known him on Twitter for a while, and we'll get into that in this episode. But we're going to go ahead and bring him on the podcast. Are you ready, Mikey P?
Yeah.
Let's bring TJ Savage in right now. There
Hello.
he is, TJ Savage. What's going on, TJ?
Hello, how y'all doing?
Good, man. How about yourself?
It's ready to get started.
Super fantastic.
Let's do it, man.
TJ, I'm going to kind of lay the foundation here. I've known you on Twitter. I mean, not known you, but I've known of you on Twitter for over a year now. You invited this podcast to be on a podcast discussion group in the DMs. What is that called? You know how the DM in the DMs you can create a group
Podcast.
Like so you created a group called Podcasts. That's what you did, and you invited a lot of hosts and co-hosts to be a part of this discussion group. And I will say that, you know, a lot of times when someone starts the discussion group on Twitter, it starts and then it fades away very quickly. It doesn't last very long. Yours has lasted over a year that I've been a part of, and it's very active. People are posting their episodes and podcasts and what's going on. So kudos to you, TJ, for starting that group over a year ago. It's still going strong. So when you asked to be on the podcast, I was excited about it actually. So I was excited to meet you.
I'm happy you invited me on.
So you have obviously you have a passion for podcasting. Like I said, we're part of this DM discussion group. What is your goal? I know you're in college. We talked a little bit about before the episode went live. Do you have any goals as far as getting into podcasts? Is that what your end goal is?
Well, I really want to do business, economics. That's my major. I just like money, but I would like to do podcasts on the side. I really just like sports, so I just like talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what gave you the idea to start the DM discussion group for podcasting?
Okay, so one day I was on Twitter and I seen all these podcast groups that mainly like y'all talk about the same thing or they all in the same area. So I decided, how about we bring everybody together so everybody can grow as one? And a year later, everybody has grown. You see, y'all podcasts have joined the network, which is good. Congratulations. And I hope all the other podcasts do the same thing because that's basically the goal and why I started the group.
Yeah. What sport are you most passionate about? So I hear you talk about basketball and football and maybe even baseball, but what are you most passionate about sports wise?
Football. And baseball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mikey P, for me, I'm interested to know you're maybe 1, 2, and 3. For me, it's football. NFL is definitely number 1. I would say NBA is number 2, and then baseball is 3.
For me, because I have to go based off of with the sports that I played, football is number 1.
Yeah.
Baseball is probably number 2 for me. And then basketball is probably number 3. And then I've gotten into hockey and soccer more over as an adult. I never played any of those sports, as a kid or even as an adult. So, but I've learned the rules and know enough about them. So, but definitely the top 3 for me it's football, baseball, basketball.
Yeah. I mean, NFL, that's number 1 on my list for sure. All right, let's talk about your your fandom. We talked pre-show. You're a big Browns fan. You're living in Alabama. Who was the quarterback when you started following the Browns? Like your earliest memory of being a Browns fan, who was the quarterback?
Derek Anderson.
Nice, Derek Anderson.
He almost took us to the playoffs. He had he had a Pro Bowl season. 2007? 2007, yeah.
It was him, Josh Cribbs, and James. Was it James Edwards? Is that his name? Edwards. I just remember his last name was Edwards.
Braylon Edwards?
Braylon
Edwards.
The wide receiver, yep. Was Derek Anderson the QB in that Buffalo game when it was snowing? And
yes.
you could hardly see through your television set. You remember that game?
Yeah, that was that was 2007, the year they almost went to the playoffs.
07.
that Buffalo game was that year when Phil Dawson kicked two what do you have 3 field goals I think in that game. And,
I mean,
Joe
yeah.
Jurevicius had a big catch in that game.
Who did the penguin slide at the end through the snow? Was that?
I thought it was Jurevicius.
Yeah. Do you remember that, TJ? I don't know. That game always sticks out. There's a few games that sticks out. That's one of them. And then also the high-scoring game against the Bengals, which I think Derek Anderson was our QB during that game as well, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. That was that insane game. It was like what's it? It's like 47-38 or something was the final.
I thought somebody had a 50 burger. I could be wrong.
It might have been 50. I know it was a fantasy. It was a fantasy game of all fantasy games. I remember that.
I was in a family restaurant / bar. You know how they have the restaurant and then they'll have a bar hooked to it. And I was watching that game and I was so loud. The bar manager asked me to leave, even though I didn't leave. I mean, but I was almost kicked out because that was such an exciting game between you remember that game, TJ, the Bengals and Browns?
51-45 was the final.
51-45.
I was a little kid. I got so many Brown bad memories. I don't even remember the good ones.
Look that up. That was a good one. We came out on top on that game.
Yeah, that was the it was week 2 because week 1 we opened with Pittsburgh that year and got trounced. Charlie Fry started and then Derek Anderson came in late and then Derek Anderson played pretty much the rest of that year.
I remember Fry. I remember him.
He played the opener against Pittsburgh and stunk it up.
Charlie Fry.
He didn't start the rest of the year.
Was that the one that got didn't he get benched after the first quarter or something like that?
Yeah, it was pretty early on because even though Anderson came in like I think second half or second quarter, like Anderson was the leading passer and wasn't even the starter.
Yeah. Wow. TJ, you're bringing back some memories, man. We've been through some QBs, haven't we, over the years?
We have.
Yeah.
I thought Brian Hoyer was about to be the one, but you see how that went.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought Colt McCoy was going to be the one.
I think there's been several along the way that we've thought was going to be the one. Even including, of course, Baker Mayfield, but here we are. Deshaun Watson's going to be our quarterback next year, which we'll get into coming up too. So excited about that. So about 2007 was your kind of. So that's not a bad year because you started. If that's your first season, you really remember. Was a winning season, so it's like you kind of started off on a high note.
Was that the 10-6 season that we didn't make it to the playoffs?
Yeah, that was the year we the Titans needed to lose the last week of the year, and the Colts I think were like 15-1 or something that year, and they started Jim Sorgi against the Titans, and the Titans won, and we lost. However, we lost at Cincinnati the week before that when we should have won that game 19-14. And that was that crazy game when the wind was really bad in Cincinnati, and Derek Anderson was just inaccurate all day. And we lost 19-14 after putting up 51 points in week 2 against them.
Yeah. Well, let's get into there's a couple things that happened this past week and even this weekend. Some news, some unfortunate news. First of all, JOK's brother, Joshua Owusu-Koramoah, passed away in a fire. I actually don't know all the details, but I understand that JOK was in Ghana conducting a youth football camp. So just prayers up for his family. Anytime a young person like that lose their life, I mean, just so young, had a bright future ahead of them. Just want to keep JOK and his family in everybody's prayers. Also, and then Saturday just shocked everybody. I was on Twitter in the spaces. I think Nick Carnes was hosting it. Maybe I seem to remember him, but the passing of Dwayne Haskins, so unfortunate. I mean, also a young guy, had a bright future ahead of him, and his life was just taken short tragically and quickly. So you just see all the reactions going through Twitter. But maybe I just wanted to get your thoughts, Mikey P. I know you're a huge Ohio State fan.
I'm a huge Ohio State fan, and when I saw the passing of Dwayne Haskins, it really struck home because these guys are athletes, and unfortunate parts that's what people see them as. But at the end of the day, these guys are also husbands, fathers, brothers, sons, grandsons. Like, they have family too, and just to see that happen, my heart just broke for I know Dwayne, I think, just had a small child within the last year. I think he had just gotten married within the last couple of years too also. So it's just like that's where my thought process goes, is just my heart goes out to his family. And he every picture that everyone showed, like, the kid was always smiling, no matter what. I saw people talking about he didn't have the NFL career that people thought he had, but you know what, at the end of the day, like, he smiled through it. He did everything he could, and he was working himself to back on his craft to try to resurrect his career. And unfortunately, that happened on Saturday. And then Owusu Koromoa's brother, JOK's brother, he was I think he was a school teacher at one of the local schools. I know he coached too also, and he went to William and Mary, great school, played football there too also as well. So good kid. Just unfortunately got unfortunate accident, and stuff happens. And just my heart and prayers go out to their families, man.
Yeah. TJ, do you have any thoughts of the news that we heard over the weekend?
I think.
I mean, it's a tough thing to talk about. I understand. I
think for everybody who listens, please do remember these athletes are more than entertainment. They're people too. They have real lives. They go through real situations, and I don't like when people wait till athletes die to all of a sudden they want to acknowledge they're human. So please remember that they are real people.
Yeah, that's a good message for sure. Sometimes we forget that, although they wear a football helmet and they, wear our favorite jersey or maybe our rival's jersey, they are people, right?
Yep. They're real feelings, real emotions. It's all real stuff. And
real stuff.
Sometimes you just got to put things in perspective, understand, like, hey, at the end of the day, it's, we're all human beings.
Yeah. It just breaks my heart. I saw that video of him. I don't know how old he was, but Dwayne Haskins was young, and he said, I think he said something like, "I'm going to play for this team," or "I'm going to play for Ohio State."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the kid, he was from Maryland too, so it wasn't like he was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, somewhere. Like,
right,
he was in Maryland. He wanted to go to Ohio State from the time he was a little kid, and it was a dream of his. And he had a magical season at Ohio State. It's a magical games, the Rose Bowl. His game against Penn State was an epic comeback on a Saturday night, in a whiteout in Penn State, which is a tough environment. I mean, he hung 62 points that year on a really good Michigan team. And, it's just unfortunate. So, like I said, definitely my heart and thoughts and prayers still go out to the family for sure.
No doubt. Well said. So that's pretty much the news of the day. Other than that, I mean, we had the Masters this past week, and I don't know if you're a golf fan, TJ, but not really. That's okay. But the Masters is a major in golf, and Tiger Woods decided he was going to play.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't really think he'd make the cut. He ended up making the cut. He wasn't in the top 10 or even the top 30. I think he finished in the 40s maybe. But it was good to see him out there. Tiger Woods, we talked about him a little bit last week. Tiger Woods is, he's my age, so he's 46. So when I was in my early 20s, I started hearing about this kid named Tiger Woods, and he's just done some unbelievable things on the golf course. So it was just good to see him out there playing. The final day, it wasn't, like a nail biter at the end. Rory McIlroy, if he had like maybe a 5-stroke better score going into Sunday, I think it would have been very interesting. He was lights out on Sunday, just making shots. So, but it was, fun Masters weekend. So, I saw a little bit of that as well. That's the only other news that I had. Let's move into the next segment. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, the QB. All right, Deshaun Watson, the QB. I think a lot has been said about Deshaun Watson, the person, and the legal battle that he's going through with the allegations. We're not going to talk anything about that tonight because I think a lot has been talked about that already. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, the QB, because I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't really thought a ton about that side of it. Mm-hmm. And, I've watched the highlight videos. I know he's a special quarterback. I know he's going to be phenomenal for us, but that's what I want to talk about tonight. I looked at his career stats, preparing for this show, and let me just read off a couple of these stats and then we'll talk about it. So in 2017, Deshaun Watson is a rookie. He played in 7 games. He started 6 before he tore his ACL in practice. Very unfortunate injury. His rookie year was cut short because of a torn ACL. Very unfortunate. But in that 6 games, he throws 1,700 yards, 1,699, 1,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and had a 103 rating. He was
really good that 2017. I mean, he's every season that he played, even the 2020 season when their team basically imploded with Bill O'Brien trading off key pieces, and you had some people that asked out, and they had tons of injuries that year on their defense and even on offense. And he still managed to put up that year 4,823 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. He's just been a dynamic passer. He's elite in the pocket, getting out of the pocket at times when he needs to. I'm really, after getting through all the legal stuff and everything that was going on, like once he gets on the field, like that part of him, I'm not really worried. Like that part, I'm not worried about. Like that guy can play. Like I saw him for a handful of years at Clemson, and personally witnessed him torch Ohio State. So I've seen the guy ball. That guy can ball out.
He definitely can. And in 2018, he comes back from the ACL. People were wondering, well, man, is he going to be right? Can he still rush the ball? Because he's a dual threat quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. So in 2018, the dude throws for 4,165 yards. 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and again has a 103 rating. Awesome numbers. I mean, I don't know where he rated as far as all QBs, but I think he was top 5, if I'm not mistaken, that year. Mm-hmm. 2019, almost does the exact same thing. 3,852 yards, 26 TDs, 12 INTs, a 98 rating. And then in 2020, this was the last year he played. He throws for 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions, which, we've seen great quarterback play. That's great quarterback play right there. And 112 rating. That's what the Cleveland Browns just traded for a few short weeks ago. TJ, what are your thoughts, man? I mean, we were talking about it, your Browns fandom. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks come in and out of this building, right? What do you think a guy like Deshaun Watson can do for the Cleveland Browns?
Well, first I'll start with the business side, why they brought him in. First off, you can market Deshaun Watson, and he's going to bring a lot of Cleveland fans back, especially after the OBJ Baker situation. And So he a good player. I think once, like you said, we're not gonna talk about the allegations. Once people get past that, see how he play, he can come in and start balling. Now, if he is he going to make it? Browns fans want to see what he can do for Cleveland. They don't care what he did in Houston. What can you do for Cleveland?
Well, that's what's exciting. That's what see and Mikey P, you touched on this, in the beginning of this segment. He did all this with some pretty good players. Mm-hmm. They had some good positional players, no doubt about that. But this is what I'm excited about. Deshaun Watson is coming on a Cleveland Browns roster that is loaded. I mean, absolutely loaded at a lot of positions. I mean, he's never had a Nick Chubb.
Nope.
To hand the ball off to. He's never had a Kareem Hunt to hand the ball off to. He's had some good wide receivers. I'm not going to say he hasn't, but Amari Cooper is no slouch. He's been called an extremely great route runner. And it's remains to be seen who else we bring in that wide receiver room. I mean, DPJ, he's, currently our number 2. I think that a guy like Deshaun Watson can help up his game. But my point is, Deshaun Watson hasn't seen a roster like we got. So I'm excited. If he got these kind of numbers with the Houston Texans, with that roster, what can he do with the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 2018, his 2 leading running backs were Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue. 2019, his 2 leading backs were Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson.
Which we've had both
solid
of those
players. They're solid guys.
We have both of them.
They're not Nick Chubb. They're not Kareem Hunt. Receiver wise, he had D Hop for 2 of those years that he really had a good rapport with, and then they got rid of D Hop in 2020. He had a good season with Will Fuller that year. So I mean, I see a guy like Amari Cooper, should have a special year next year, and it's along with guys like Njoku and Bryant, and I see DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, stepping up and having a really good season, not having to be the number 1 guy, more so maybe being the number 2, even number 3 at times. So, and then whoever they target in the draft.
Even Anthony Schwartz, there's been mixed reviews on him. Obviously he's very raw. Mm-hmm. He's a fast guy. I mean, he's very fast. Someone like him, having Deshaun Watson, who's accurate as all get out. He's a dual threat, but a guy like Anthony Schwartz could see the benefit of having a Deshaun Watson as his QB.
Oh, absolutely.
I was just about to say that with the O-line, the Browns guy, he can get a lot of rush yards. He a dual threat quarterback. He gonna throw and run. And with the Browns O-line, he can do that.
You bring up a good point with the O-line. You're right. I mean, he hadn't seen an O-line like this.
Mm-mm.
We have the best O-line coach in the league, I believe. Bill Callahan. So, yeah. I mean, we'll have to see. But what were your thoughts when we initially traded for Deshaun Watson? Were you immediately excited, TJ?
I was happy we was actually getting a real quarterback. Baker fans, y'all gonna hate me. I was happy we were getting that real quarterback for the first time since I've been born. But the question is, what is he gonna do? Because Deshaun Watson ain't played a season and a half. So it's like, are you gonna come back being the same player, or are you gonna come back being average? That's what and he getting a lot of money, so we gonna see. What you think, Mike?
You think there'll be a lot of rust on them tires at first?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some rust there. I think it'll kick off pretty quickly, though. Maybe you'll see it game 1, maybe for the first half, into the second half. But I think come second half, he'll be ready to play. But you know what? We're talking pre-show. These guys just work out all year long now. It's almost like sometimes it's like they don't even need the preseason. Like they come out their game and ready. And quarterback's different than the other positions. Like receivers do need those reps because you're building up your wind and stuff like that. Where quarterback's just a little bit different. But I'm excited. I hope he's out there week 1 playing, and we'll finally break the streak. That's my hope. Is we haven't won a home opener since Jeff Garcia. I mean, not a home opener, but an opener since Jeff Garcia. So I'm hoping that Deshaun Watson's out there week 1, and we can end that streak.
TJ, where do you currently rank the AFC North quarterbacks? So, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson,
Joe Burrow,
Deshaun Watson, and
is it gonna be Mason Rudolph, or is it gonna be?
I think that job is TBD.
Yeah.
I think at this point it's going to come down between Rudolph and Trubisky.
Yeah, that's just
and we don't know. They've
I'm not saying
they've
Trubisky,
gone out and watched Malik Willis. They went to his workout, so they could be enamored with him. Maybe they like him, and Malik Willis is drafted. Because I think the rest of their roster, I don't see them starting a rookie right away. But I could see them maybe like running Rudolph and Trubisky out there, until they feel like a Malik Willis is ready to sneak in there. So
my rankings are Lamar, of course, Joe Burrow, then Deshaun Watson, because we ain't seen Deshaun this season, and then I'm gonna say Trubisky, he gonna be a starter quarterback because they ain't signing him for no reason. But yes, we know Steelers, thank God, ain't gonna be trash.
Hopefully, right?
I do not like those. But yeah, well, I mean, it was sad for Dwayne Haskins, but I'm still a Browns fan. I don't like them.
Where do you rank the AFC North quarterbacks currently, Mikey P?
For me right now, and it's only because he hasn't played in a year. I have Burrow 1, Watson 2, but I think Watson is almost as good of a passer as Burrow is, but he's got better feet and can give you that dual threat where Burrow doesn't quite have that. Lamar's got the feet part, but he's just not a polished passer yet. Like he's still too inconsistent with his. He throws a pretty deep ball. But his short to intermediate stuff sometimes. When he goes to the tight end, he always looks good. But when he goes to his receivers, he's not as good for some reason. And then Pittsburgh would be number 4, which is weird to say. But Pittsburgh, they can stay that way for forever, for all I care, though.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think Burrow would be number 1. For a guy that just took his team to the Super Bowl. How can you not have him number 1 in your division? I agree with you, TJ. Deshaun Watson has to, not that he has to prove himself. I think he will prove himself, but he has to kick the rust off the tires and get out there and throw the ball around and win some ball games. So I'm going to put Joe Burrow number 1. I think Watson is number 2. I agree with you, Mikey P. I mean, Lamar Jackson is dynamic. He really is. But I think he took a little bit of a step back. I think if he ever cleans up the passing part of it, he could be very dangerous. But at this point, Deshaun Watson would be number 2, and then Lamar Jackson 3. And then I'll put, Mason Rudolph and Trubisky number 4. 4A, 4B. How about that? For the sake of argument, because we don't know who's going to make that team.
We don't.
All right, let's get into the 2022 NFL draft. We're specifically going to talk about pick number 44 because that's the Cleveland Browns pick. Now, I'm going to preface this as saying I am not a draft guru expert. TJ, we were talking pre-show. I think me and you are in the same boat. So we'll be over here. We'll be over here in this boat. Mikey P is going to have to lead us a little bit. He's going to be the captain of this. But I want to talk about this specifically because on Saturday night on the Faithful Dogs Network on the Twitch channel, Mikey P, you were a part of a mega mock draft. And we're going to talk about that. Just pick number 44. It was very entertaining. I bought a bottle of wine. I had 2 glasses while I was watching this mega mock draft episode. It was awesome. But basically, there was 4 picks. Explain to me the process. So you guys use different platforms for the draft simulator?
Yes. So we each of us use 2 of us use Pro Football Focus. I think there was a Pro Football Network database, and there was one other one. We used 3 different ones. And we picked based off to where the Browns were. I got a little creative with mine because I actually traded back later in the draft a pick and picked up an extra pick. And that was fun to do that. Like, they've added that feature this year. It used to be you just drafted players, but now you can submit a trade for active players on the roster. You can trade back or trade up for future picks or next year's picks. So I've started having a little bit of fun with that, but we more so in the first round or second round when we pick 44, everyone stayed put. Everybody picked somebody, and it was interesting to see where everybody went based off of the Browns' needs. Obviously, the 2 biggest needs are wide receiver and defensive line, and some went edge. I went edge. Some went receiver based off of who was available. Some even went with a Cameron Thomas, who's kind of like a hybrid player. Like, he can play he's an inside-outside guy. And then we had, Cameron Thomas was one of the picks. 2 of us grabbed the defensive end, edge rusher, Drake Jackson from USC. Cameron Thomas is an edge. He's listed as an edge guy, but he also can play the interior out of San Diego State. And then the other one, which was a guy who, if you remember this, he really showed out against Alabama in the national championship game, the wide receiver George Pickens, who a lot of people would say would instantly be a first-round pick this year, had he not battled injuries early in the season.
Do you think George Pickens ends up being there at 44? Because I heard you guys talking on the mock draft, and all of you collectively were surprised that he was still there.
It just depends, because it depends on people's boards, because you're going to have some teams that may not be interested in receiver at all. And then you're going to have other teams that, receivers are almost getting like running backs nowadays, where it's like you constantly be drafting 1 to 2 receivers every year, getting those young guys up to speed and ready, for when the older guys kind of get to that age realm where it's like, you don't want to pay them, or you got to pay them top dollar anymore, and you can't have 3 of those guys. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have 3 $20 million receivers in your.
The Browns tried to last year.
It either doesn't work, or it's like it just ties up so much money. So you're seeing that with the receivers, just like you do with the running backs. I personally don't think he's going to be there at 44. I think if the Browns are really truly in love with him, they would probably have to move up some to get him. But it just depends on what teams are, because I'm looking at Green Bay's got 2 picks in the first round. They definitely have to go receiver with, if not one, if not both of those positions. Typically, you don't see them go do both in the first round like that, but they definitely have a wide receiver need. Buffalo probably needs another receiver now. Their receivers were older. I mean, other than Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley's gone.
Kansas City.
Emmanuel Sanders, you got Kansas City. He's got 2 first-round picks, and they're 29 and 30. So literally, they pick back to back. So they can, whoever their top 2 players on the board, they can just take. They definitely are going to need to take a receiver. So I mean, for me, it's just gonna. It just depends on how people have them ranked on their boards, because you're probably going to have people that literally have Pickens number 7 or 8 on their board, and you're going to have other people have them in the top 5 on their board. And it just depends on where these people have their draft boards. It's going to be interesting watching draft night, round 1 with no first round pick, seeing how the dominoes fall, because like last year, I was like, all right, here JOK is going. And then round 2 started, I was like, JOK is going. And then when we moved up, I was like, I think we're going to get JOK. And we did. So I think looking at Andrew Berry's history, if he really likes Pickens or any of these edge rushers, he will make it happen to move up to make sure he gets his guy. Like,
what do you think, TJ? Should at pick 44, without naming a name who you think it's going to be, do you think the Browns should go wide receiver or defensive end with that pick, or maybe another position?
I'm gonna be a wild card. I'm gonna say linebacker. I feel like the Browns D line wise are straight always. They always manage to get do it the practice squad or something. DB wise, I feel like we need more depth at that position. But linebackers, I feel like we gave up a lot of run plays and pass coverage was just it's like we were just lost. Now we have been drafting linebackers the past 2 or 3 seasons, but I feel like we really need like that, like Luke Kuechly, Lawrence Taylor, Tony linebacker in the middle, or like Ray Lewis. We need like a linebacker. What you think, Jason?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what Andrew Berry thinks. I don't know if they'll pick a linebacker at 44. I mean, I guess they could. I feel like a stronger need for the Browns would be a wide receiver to couple with Amari Cooper, or a defensive end. Now, I know that Jadeveon Clowney, it sounds like he might be coming back to the Browns, which he's obviously, we saw it last year. He's an excellent bookend, with Myles Garrett. But he's also expensive, and he's also probably going to be a 1-year deal. So the idea of getting another defensive end at the 44 pick would excite me, because, we would have him for 4 years, on a rookie deal. So it'd be cheaper for us, and we can groom him. I think, Myles Garrett isn't getting any younger. Hopefully he has several more years left, but I think we need to start looking at that position, because what excites me is, a lot of times we talk about our offense, which it is dynamic, but if our defense can, if we can keep these scores low, and we can, because the NFL especially on the AFC side, man, there are a lot of great quarterbacks in the AFC, a lot. So the idea of having an elite defensive line to get after these elite quarterbacks, that makes sense to me. So I can look at it that way, but then I can also totally get on board with a wide receiver at that pick, especially if one of these top guys, falls down. Tyler Johnson, during the mega mock draft, he couldn't believe that George Pickens was still there. And he's like, I can't pass on this guy. Like, if I passed on him, that'd be an idiot move to do. Yeah. So he picked him. So maybe Andrew Berry, if George Pickens is still there, maybe he'd think the same way. Like, this is a no-brainer pick. He's at the top of my board. I'm going to take him. We just have to see how the board falls, Mikey P, you said this last episode, you just never know how this board is going to fall, man. And you don't know who's on top of whose boards, like George Pickens might be real high on our board, but on someone else's board, he's not real high at all. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends, like I said, whatever Andrew Berry's board says and where he's got guys positioned at. I mean, if they obviously, it sounds like Clowney is going to be back. But with a guy like, they made that trade for Winovich. Like, does now he look at, maybe he's got an edge rusher that he really likes that he says, I really like him, but I don't like him slotted at that pick. I like him maybe slotted, week 3 or round 3 or round 4. And I think there's a lot of good talent, and he's shown that he's able to get talent in other places other than just the early rounds. So it just depends on what they feel like their biggest need is. And
who knows? Yeah. It could be a right tackle that we draft.
I will say this, doesn't seem like Andrew Berry overvalues defensive tackles and like middle linebackers. He really likes outside backers, and they're really, I say that is because they play with a lot of 2 linebackers. Like, it's more JOK, and you got Anthony Walker is in the 2-backer set, and then you'll see Taki come in there, and then you have Jacob Phillips. Like, I feel like they play with a lot of two backer sets. Especially in the way football is going, people throw the ball all over the field anymore. Like you see a lot of either three cornerbacks that you're in nickel a lot, or you're bringing in that extra safety, three safeties, three corners. You're seeing the linebackers are kind of like they're almost playing a different type of position than what they are accustomed for. And then you have a guy like JOK who's primarily it's like he wasn't brought in to just cover tight ends. Like he was brought in to spy quarterbacks too. You have these guys like Josh Allen that are mobile, Mahomes mobile, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow to a point is mobile.
I can't say this. I feel like the Browns have. Trust me, we all being Browns fans, they have picked up the pace on drafting because you know how they used to draft. I used to be so angry when I used to see them draft picks. I'd be like, come on now. Like, I know it was somebody way better, but these past, 4 or 5 draft picks, I think started with Myles Garrett. What was that, 2015, 16?
2016, I believe.
Yeah, the year we drafted Myles Garrett, I feel like ever since then, of course we had our up and downs, but I feel like ever since then we drafted good.
I mean, even Baker Mayfield, I don't regret that pick. I really don't. I think he served his purpose in Cleveland. It ended. He's going to be someone else's quarterback now, but I love the years that Baker Mayfield was here. I mean, we have seen so many great games. We made the playoffs. We've seen improvements. We built a roster around him. So, even that pick, even though it didn't work out and he's going to another team, I was happy with Baker Mayfield.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can go back and play Monday morning quarterback all you want about that draft, but I mean, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, who knows? Maybe they draft Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold is a train wreck from the get-go here, and they draft Josh Allen. Maybe Josh Allen isn't the quarterback that he is now in Buffalo, because it's hard sometimes to go back and say like, oh, this player would have done this here. You can't say that because different strokes for different folks and different faces and different places don't always work out.
Yeah, to be an elite football team, you got to go through the grind. You got to go through the players. Some players you draft or you pick up in free agency or in trade you're excited about, and they're here just for a short time, but they served a purpose. I think OBJ served a purpose here, but the idea is you're going up to the next level, and right now I'm excited more than ever to be a Cleveland Browns fan. Bringing in Deshaun Watson, I just think he's going to take us to a level that we've never seen before. Amari Cooper, that didn't get a huge buzz around the NFL, but as Browns fans, we're excited. Jakeem Grant, that was a nice signing, I thought. He made the Pro Bowl last year, so that was a good pick. So it's just an exciting time to be a Browns fan. We got to get through the draft and see where the chips fall. We don't have a first round pick for this year, next year, and the year after. Is that right, Mikey P?
Yeah, next 3 seasons, no first round pick.
Next 3 seasons, no first round picks. But let me tell you, the Rams have lived that way.
Yeah.
For a while.
Pick. I couldn't tell you. I don't remember who their last first round pick was. I think it was Jared Goff.
Might have been Jared Goff. So they've lived that way for a while, and they've done just fine. So I'm okay with not having a pick for the next 3 years. It just matters. The picks you do have, you do something with them, and you pick the player that that fits well in your system and your team and your scheme and all that. So I have full trust in Andrew Berry that he's gonna do just fine. So.
Let's do a last minute hot topic. It's like for 1 minute because we almost out of time.
We are almost out of time.
Y'all think if Myles Garrett don't have the same numbers he been having for previous season, he gonna get traded?
I don't feel like Myles Garrett will get traded.
No.
I think I hope he's a lifer, kind of like Joe Thomas. That's how I view him. Myles Garrett, Joe Thomas had chances to get out of the building and get traded, and he wanted to stay at Cleveland Browns. So hopefully Myles Garrett feels the same way, and I think our organization thinks highly of Myles Garrett, and so do us as Browns fans. So hopefully not, man. Jadeveon Clowney being the bookend with him last year, I thought worked. So, I'm excited about Myles Garrett. I hope he's here a long time. Let's move into the last segment, and then we gotta land this plane. We got about 4 minutes, and then the Barking Dogs Brown Cat podcast is about to come on at 8:00. So we have a segment called the Yard Dawgs Podcast Mailbag, and we have a question there. At Terry M0516 asks, why is it taking so long for the Browns to get Jarvis Landry back? So it's been rumored, TJ, I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been rumored that Jarvis Landry is he hasn't signed anywhere. He's probably going to be back as a Cleveland Brown. But what's taking so long, man? Why isn't he back? Why haven't the Browns signed him? What are your thoughts on that?
Simple answer. I think he's looking at his options. I think there's other places where he could get more money than what the Browns are offering, because the Browns got to play a lot of big name players we have. So I think that's why. And I think because of the OBJ Becker situation, he kind of hesitant. What y'all think?
Mikey P, what do you think is, or do you even think that Jarvis Landry will ultimately come back? Or, what are your thoughts on him and why the Browns haven't brought him back yet?
I don't know. I just think right now you're probably the money is not where Jarvis probably wants it to be, and the Browns aren't offering the years. Maybe I think there's a lot. There's a lot of guys that are kind of holding in a holding pattern as far as signing now. I think you'll see that shakeout probably more after the draft, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Jarvis Landry's 29 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. He's probably looking for one more pretty big payday. He's looking for money and years. He's probably looking for a 3 or 4 year contract, I'm sure. Maybe the numbers just don't work. I don't know. We definitely can't pay him the amount of money that he's asking for. We'll have to see. I was on board with bringing on Jarvis Landry. I think he would fit well. Mm-hmm. He was the first guy that came here, man. Before coming to Cleveland was cool. Jarvis Landry came here, and since then we've brought on multiple big name players to the Browns. So part of me hopes that they bring him back, but then another side of me understands the business side of it. The numbers have to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where we're at there. We don't know what direction the Browns were going to go. Would it be cool to have Jarvis Landry and Amari Cooper as, wide receiver 1 and 2? Yeah, I think it would be. You got 2 thumbs up, TJ. But, maybe Andrew Berry has other plans, cheaper plans, that maybe they'll look at a different direction. It's a little bit cheaper, and that'll allow them to bring other players that we need to fill other needs. So we will have to see there. Well, we've got 1 more minute. This is a chance where I like to give all of our guests an opportunity to give themselves a plug. Like, where can we find you on social media? So, TJ, where can we find you on social media?
My name is TJ McKinley. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. TJ Savage. You could Google my name, TJ McKinley. You would not able to find me on Twitter.
So at _TJ _Savage.
No, at Mr. _TJ _Savage.
There you go. You can find him there. He's a great fan, great Browns fan. He likes to bring everybody together as one. So make sure you give him a follow there. We're just about out of time. Mikey P, any final thoughts before we end the show?
No final thoughts. Just glad to be first show on the network.
Yes,
glad to have you on the show tonight, TJ. And hopefully this will lead to bigger and better things for the Browns this season. So just excited. Draft coming up in a couple weeks. I'm ready.
I'm ready too. 2 weeks from this Thursday. the first round. So, well, I like to end all of our podcasts with the Go Browns. So, TJ, Mikey P, if you'll join me on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Go
Browns.